critical thinking, part 2. Critical thinking is an essential tool to help us to stay in the best mental health. Now, there's many issues that we could be dealing with as a result of the trauma that we experienced in childhood. In order for a child to be able to cope with not getting their needs met, the child may do a lot of different things, but one of the common things that a child does is split. And the split can look a lot of different ways, but essentially a split is an extreme way of reacting so that the child can keep his or herself safe or can get his or her needs met. And so there's different ways that this split can occur. For some children, they become egopathic as a result of the trauma they're experiencing, which means that they're going to be fierce, they're going to be manipulative, they're going to be in the fight response, and they're going to look to actually pick the fights and make sure they're constantly winning the fights so that they can ultimately come out on top in life, and they no longer have to feel like their needs are not being met or that they're being victimized, which for them would be the worst possible thing. But for other survivors, it's just the opposite. It could be some moral capacity they have, or that they're more sensitive or they're more empathic, so they can't bear the idea that they would have to harm others in order to get their needs met. So as a result, in order to make sure that they keep themselves safe and to get their needs met, they adapt to become ultra agreeable, ultra pleasing. This is also a split because it's also an extreme. They're so afraid to make waves or to make their parents mad or to displease their caregivers that they learn to abandon themselves completely. And so now, instead of having a blind spot for everyone else and the well-being of other people, they actually develop a blind spot for themselves and their own well-being. And this is happening because the child has to make sense of something that doesn't make sense, which is that they are in a family system where their needs are not being met. How can a child cope with a situation like that? The split can occur for some children as them actually having two sides of themselves. So they may have one fierce, predatorial, mean, seemingly bad, more narcissistic, more egopathic side of themselves. And then they have the other side, which is very soft, very vulnerable. That side tends to whine and complain and cry. That side is the little child that kind of got left behind and got abandoned. And so they may adapt to have a part of themselves that's more of a protector, so that the self can stay safe, because now they've developed a way to protect themselves. For some people, they may develop actual alternate personalities, as in dissociative identity disorder, where a person will feel like they have alternate personalities inside that are acting different ways at different times. They can come out multiple times per hour, or for days they can just be one person and then switch to be another person in another circumstance. Some people don't have it as extreme as that, but they do act differently when they're at work to when they're at home, and when they're with one group of friends to when they're with other group of friends. They may call themselves a chameleon. And so on Wednesday, we're going to have a special presentation for what we can do to integrate these different parts of the self. Even if we have it as extreme as in dissociative identity disorder, where the parts of the self seem to be lost behind an amnesiac curtain, meaning we can't remember even what we're doing when we're the other part of ourselves. But all of these are various forms of dissociation, leaving one part of ourselves to become something else, the brain taking over because we feel that we can't handle a certain situation. And it is a life skill. It is important. It is essential that we learn how to become integrated, how to become one, and we don't continue to default to the extreme way that we adapted to handle the trauma that we were experiencing. Now, all of this being the case is not to blame us as the trauma survivor. After all, we were abused, we were neglected, we were abandoned, and that has to be acknowledged. The fact of the matter is, you should not view yourself as broken as a result of your trauma. It's actually quite the opposite. If you have survived, it is miraculous, because you're not supposed to survive what you went through. Also, rather than being defective, it's actually showing that you are effective, that you've been able to find a way to survive and live despite the extreme deprivation that you've had to go through. You may feel that your soul was killed, like your soul was murdered by your parents or by the intense negative situation that you grew up in, where you just could not be yourself and you didn't feel comfortable being who you truly were out in the open. You may feel that you have lost yourself as a result, but I assure you, you are not broken. You have adapted to survive. Now, as you are going out into the real world as adults, we call your adaptation a maladaptation, because now the same way of acting that you learned back then doesn't work for you in your real life in the real world. For instance, the fawning response, where you're living your life to please and appease your caregivers as a child. Now, when you go out into the world and you're pleasing and appeasing these women or these men that you're finding yourselves in a relationship with, and what happens? Further abuse. Why? Because this is a maladaptation now. The way that you adapted once to survive doesn't work anymore. We may have adapted with the fight response to learn, hey, we got to go in, we got to beat them up before they beat us up. We got to take the fight to them. We got to have the worst words, the harshest words. We got to be able to tear people down and really break them down before they break us down. But if you adapted that way because that was how you had to survive in the harsh household with your emotionally immature parents, you may have found that that gets you in a lot of trouble. Now, in real life, in the real world, you adapted, but now it is a maladaptation. You may have learned to just freeze. I say, how are you feeling? You say, I don't know how I feel. I feel nothing. I feel numb. So what are you going to do? I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm not going to do anything. Why don't you want to do anything? Because I don't want to fail. You're afraid to fail? Yes, I feel like I'm going to fail. I feel like if I do something, I'm just going to fail. And it's not going to work. So I'm just not going to do anything. Well, you realize if you just don't do anything, that's a failure in itself. Oh, well, I never thought of that. Well, that's the problem. With a lack of critical thinking, our life is just one big trauma response. So we're always just in the fight, always in the fawn, always in the freeze, or you might be the flight person. How'd your last relationship end? I ran away. I ghosted him. How'd your relationship like that before that end? I ran away. I ghosted him. Do you always just run away from difficult situations? Oh, this conversation is really intense. I feel like we should break up. You don't want to talk anymore? No. Why? Because your life is one big flight response. You're just running every time something gets difficult, gets scary. You become afraid. You are constantly in a state of fear. When we don't think critically, we will respond to everything by our childhood adaptations. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn, every single time. And what will happen as a result? Our life will be a mess. And then the doctors will come in and the doctors will say, what? You have a disorder. And why would they say that? Because it's not working for our life anymore. And then we say, wow, am I broken? Why am I broken? What happened to me? You adapted. As a child, you adapted. But you, as a human being, you are not broken. Although you may feel that way, you are not broken. You, as a human being, are adapted. Now you are maladapted, and we just have to change the programming that you developed as a child. Your programming is your beliefs in your subconscious mind. This is what I believe about the world. This is what I believe about myself. We have to change those because the ones you learned aren't going to work anymore, as you've seen. They don't work anymore. So childhood trauma survivors split to be extreme in their reactions. We need to get out of fawning, fight, flight, and we need to get into strategic thinking, critical thinking. What is critical thinking? Well, as we learned in Module 1 on critical thinking, it is analyzing and discerning. You have to analyze and discern. What does that mean? It means you have the ability to look at information and make a decision. Not to freeze up and not make any decision, or to do just the opposite and make the first decision that comes to your mind and be erratic and just run away. It's not to try to appease the killer or the psychopath in your life and become a rug for them. It's to analyze, take in information, be strategic, think, and decide, discern, make a move. Critical thinking is your ability to analyze and discern. This is essential in order to help us in our mental health, in order to help us to stop defaulting to splitting, which is extreme thinking and an extreme way of acting. So when we analyze and we discern, then we're able to make decisions in a more sophisticated manner. What are we really aiming toward? Well, a couple of things. One is balance. We need balance in our life. You see, when we just run away from everything, that's not the balanced response. It's balance. Instead of just ghosting everyone, it's balance to speak to them, to say, hey, you know, I'm having trouble with this relationship. I'd like to take a little bit of a break, or I'd like to work these things out. It's balance. So instead of the extreme, we're finding a way to bring it back a little bit. How do we achieve balance in our decisions? Well, literally, if we are, let's say we're standing up physically, you realize that in order to stay balanced when you stand physically, you're actually contracting the muscles a little to the left, a little to the right, a little forward, a little back. And it's happening in all these little micro contractions. So you think you're just standing and you're balanced, but you're actually making constant micro adjustments. This is how we stay balanced metaphysically, meaning in our thoughts. We have to make constant adjustments to our thoughts. So if you're thinking, I would like to get out of this relationship, immediately you'll have the extreme option that will come to the table. And the extreme option says, okay, I want to run away from this. I just got to run out. I just got to run out of this relationship. Okay. So to balance, we need to make a micro adjustment in the opposite direction, right? So if the extreme thought is over here, we got to go the opposite direction in order to create the balance. It doesn't mean to go to the other extreme, right? Because the other extreme of running away is to freeze. I'll just stay here and do nothing and just let this partner do whatever they want to me, right? That's just taking it to the other extreme. So we don't want to flight, we don't want to fly away, and we don't want to freeze. So how do we hit the balance in between? Well, if our tendency here is to run away, then we gotta go, hold on, what if we stay? Right? We gotta pull the opposite direction with our thoughts by asking from the opposite angle. What if we stay? Not what if we freeze? We're just gonna pull it in toward the freeze a little bit. If our tendency here is just to freeze, we say, hold on, what if we move? What if we take some action here, right? So if we're freezing, we're coming this way toward the flight, which is action. And if we're running, then we're coming this way toward the freeze, which is staying. And what is the balance between running away and freezing and doing nothing? Or maybe to stay and work it out. Or maybe not to ghost, but to at least communicate that we are leaving. Well, what if we're in a life or death situation? Well, then that's why we have the trauma responses. Those are for life or death situations. Sometimes you do need to run, right? But what we're talking about is on a daily basis, you cannot be making all of your decisions as if they are life or death situations. So we need to analyze situations and ask ourselves, is this an actual life or death scenario? Or is this an everyday scenario that I just need to figure out? Right? Your basic everyday relationship issues are not life or death. Difficult conversations, feeling uncomfortable is not life or death. Feeling stress is not life or death. Being afraid of feeling guilty or feeling emotion, these are not life or death. So we need to employ critical thinking. How do we know the difference? Just pause for a moment and analyze. That's where the rule of 7 seconds comes in. It's all about our analysis. So we have to be able to say, oh, wait, hold on, this isn't life or death. Let me take a minute and let me employ a strategy. Sometimes we can think about things for minutes, hours, days before actually discerning and making a decision on it. And it will be guaranteed that your decision after you've thought about it is superior to the decision you would have made that is impulsive and is just purely a trauma response. On the everyday decisions of life, we cannot be doing them in a trauma response. Your boss wants to talk to you. It's not time for a trauma response, right? So how might you become dysregulated if your boss wants to talk to you? Let's practice critical thinking, which is going to be coming to a balance, coming to the middle. How do we do that? Well, we got to analyze the information and we realize, okay, this isn't life or death. I am scared that my boss wants to talk to me. But the extreme side says, you got to fight. You got to go in there and you got to throw Kathy under the bus. You got to go in there and tell them all the things that Kathy's been doing wrong, how Kathy is just the absolute worst. You just got to go in there and you got to drag Kathy. Right? That's an extreme reaction. You got to recognize, is this extreme? Analytical thinking tells you, okay, that's extreme. And the other extreme is, well, I'm just going to fawn. I'm just going to go in there and just lay down. Whatever you say, sir. Oh my gosh, you're the boss. I'm just so scared. Please, please, please don't let anything happen to me. It's another extreme reaction. And then we leave and we feel like, oh, I don't have any self-respect. I hate myself. I can't sleep. I'm going to go home and cry. I can't live in this situation. I hate my boss. Now I'm resentful. Now I resent him because I fawned. That's what happens when we're in the trauma response. It doesn't work out for the long term. Now I hate my boss because I fawned. He didn't tell me to do that. That's me going into extreme reaction. So how do I pull to the middle? Well, if my tendency is here, then I gotta analyze the other side of it. So instead of fighting, what if I fawn a little bit? And instead of fawning, what if I put a little fight into it? And where's the balance between fighting and fawning? And I may find myself at something like being polite, but also being assertive. And so there I can explain to my boss in a respectful way, I want to finish all of the assignments you give me, but sometimes while I'm working on one assignment, you'll give me another assignment. And I'm not sure how you want me to prioritize them. So I actually need you to tell me what I should do when I'm in that situation. Because I do like working for you. But this is something that isn't sustainable unless I learn how I can do this in a way that's going to work for the both of us. A little politeness, a little assertiveness, a balance, bam. And the boss understands, oh, yeah, okay, good. Now I understand. A balance between the fighting and the fawning. To go in, maybe we say, I'm going to listen first. Instead of just going in and dragging Kathy, maybe I'll go in and just see what the boss wants. It may not even be a bad thing, right? And so we have to employ critical thinking skills. Is that making sense? So I'm going to take you into the quality control checklist. Now, you may remember the quality control checklist. We have to run our thoughts through a quality control checklist to make sure our thoughts are not extreme. And this is something we got to do all the time. Run our thoughts through quality, because not all of our thoughts are high quality. But there's two things we have to address first. Two of the common pitfalls that keep us in extreme acting and extreme thinking and extreme behavior is a lack of purpose and too much fear. That's what throws us off. See, when you're living your life in absolute terror and fear, that's what's got you thinking, oh my God, I just got to do whatever I got to do. And I got to just appease my murderous girlfriend, or I just got to run away from my job. I got to quit when things get difficult. Why are you doing all these things? Fear. If you're someone who is dissociated, you have two different sides of yourself. Why do you become so fiercely defensive and so harsh with your words, as in borderline personality disorder? Why do you go into that dark mindset, into that dark state where everybody is after you and everyone's a bad person? Why do you become extreme like that? Fear. It's fear. You're afraid that they're going to do something to you. You feel like you need to protect yourself, right? So the problem is that we actually have too much fear, right? And then the other problem is we got too little purpose in our life. Like, we don't understand what our real purpose is. So if I were to ask you, okay, what is your purpose? What are you working towards? What's your goals? And if you say, I don't know, just to survive, that is a lack of purpose. There's a lack of purpose. We're not like forest animals. You're not a squirrel. You see, if you think like a squirrel, like, oh, I just got to survive, then you live like a squirrel, and you'll be just rummaging around, just trying to get your little nut, and then you go, and as soon as you're in the street, oh, a car's coming. A little to the left, a little to the right, a little to the left. Oh no, to the right, to the right. Oh no. That's how you know the car runs right over you, because you can't decide anything, because you're constantly in fear. You're over here, then you're over here. And you're like, oh, man, I'm like a passenger in my own life. Why is this happening? Why are you a passenger in your own life? Because you live in fear and you have no purpose. You don't know what you're doing with your life. You're just trying to survive. We got to get out of the survival mindset in order to get to the next level, which is to actually be actualized, to thrive in life, to actually achieve. We need to have a dream. That is a purpose, that is a vision, a goal, something you are working towards. What are you creating? What are you doing? Who are you? As in, who do you want to be? How will you assert who you are on this world? How will you improve this place and leave it better than it was before you came? What will you accomplish? I just want to survive. I just want to pay my bills. I just want to eat. I just want to raise my kids. That's basic, bare minimum. Of course, you're supposed to do that. Yeah, because your one primary responsibility on this earth is to care for yourself. So you got to get beyond that. Okay, that got left behind when you were like 12. From age 12 up, we got to be thinking in terms of, what would I like to accomplish in life? And don't feel bad. Growing up in the environment you grew up in, you weren't built up. Your parents were supposed to be validating you, right? How often? Every day. You're supposed to be hearing your father validating you every day. You were supposed to have the time to explore your gifts. When you grow up in an unstable system, you're just hoping to make it out alive, to just feel like you have some sense of self by the end of all that. So it's understandable. This isn't for you to feel bad that you didn't get the time to develop it then, but it's to recognize that now it is your responsibility to develop it. It's your job. You have to do it. So pick a dream, pick a goal, pick a purpose. And this is what balances you out. So instead of being fear, and just very little to no dreams and no belief in self, we got to balance this out, bring the fear down, and bring the dream up. So we got So we are a purpose-driven person who is not bound by fear. That's who you want to be, a purpose-driven person who's not bound by fear. Now we can start making healthier decisions, right? This is going to be essential because most of your decisions are being made in fear when you're not thinking critically. So let's jump into the quality control checklist here. Maybe it'd be helpful if I share my screen with you so you can see the notes I'm working off of. So that's our quality control checklist there. So basically, here's the goal of the quality control checklist: to make sure our thoughts are high quality. Low quality thoughts leads to a low quality life. Low quality thinking leads to a low quality life. If we think thoughts that are hurtful, that are detrimental to the self, then how do you think your life's going to turn out? Right? So we actually have to watch what we're thinking about. So when you have a thought that comes up, one of the most important questions you can ask is, does this get me to my purpose? Does this thought get me to my purpose? Is it help? How is this helping me? Remember, we're dream driven. So you constantly have to be asking, how does this help me with my purpose? Constantly, all the time. So a friend calls you, hey girl, oh man, there's so much going on. I have to come over here there right now. What are you doing? Stop, pause, 7 seconds. Ask yourself, does this give me to my purpose? Because your first thought might be, oh, my girlfriend wants to come over. Oh, she needs me. Okay. Yeah, let me tell her, yeah, of course she can come over. But that's fawning, right? Because then next thing you know, as soon as you get off the phone, you feel resentment. Why does she think she can just call me anytime and just come over here and just take up my time? Well, hold on, buddy. You didn't set the boundaries. You could have said no. Why are you resenting her? It's your job to set the boundaries. So we can do that by slowing down. Even if you have to tell someone on the phone, hey, you know what? Hey, yeah. Listen, let me call you back on that. Or I'm going to text you in a few minutes. Okay, so let me check and then I'm going to text you. Don't make decisions in the moment. Give yourself the pause, minimum 7 seconds. And then you pull out your quality control checklist. You got to pull this out mentally. All right, you got to have this memorized. Not all of these questions, but this first one. Does this get me to my purpose? How is this helping me to get to my purpose? This is the one of the most important questions you can ask about any thought you have, any opportunity that arises, because that's how you know if it's right or not. See, I can't tell you in this conversation, you should not let your friends come over. I can't tell you that because it depends. It depends on your purpose, you see. That's how you know if it's an adaptive decision or not. You see, because if this friend is full of drama and trauma, and right now you have a whole purpose, besides the fact that you're trying to heal, you're actually trying to work on your acting career, and you're doing your monologues right now, and you've only got so much time, you're going to realize quickly with just a little analysis, there's that little bit of analysis, oh, this isn't helping me on my purpose. And then what do if it's not helping us on our purpose? Then we have to discern, analyze, discern. What does it mean to discern? To discern is to distinguish with difficulty, to decide. In the end, you have to make a decision. It's not true critical thinking if you just don't make a decision, right? So on the critical thinking video, I said, critical thinking, you need to question everything, right? And one person said, well, if I question everything, how do I keep from ruminating? You keep from ruminating by answering your question. You're not just supposed to see, rumination is where we think we're overthinking, but we're underthinking. So we say, why did my boyfriend leave me? Oh, why did he leave me? Why did he leave me? And then we just do that. Why did he leave me? Why did he leave me? Da, 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 da. You're asking yourself a detrimental question. That question is not helping you to get to your purpose. That's helping you to go backwards and to be stuck in bad feelings. It's a detrimental question. It's not propitious. It's not helping you in your life. So you have to ask yourself, even about the questions you have to question your questions. And that's how you stay out of rumination. So you have to ask yourself, you say, okay, why did my boyfriend leave me? And then you got to stop and say, wait, is that question going to help me toward my purpose? That's how you get out of rumination. You have to answer the question. Oh, my boyfriend leaving me? Well, let me do the JOT method on that. Sit down, you work it out. What do you come out with at the end? Oh, I shouldn't be worried about what my boyfriend's doing. It's not my concern. It was never my job to keep him. It's just my job to be myself. Oh, wow, that is so freeing. That is so liberating. I love that. It was never my job to keep him. Yeah, why do you feel good right now? Because you thought it out. You use critical thinking. That's what the JOT method does. So we got to use our tools. Is that making sense? Ask yourself, what does this have to do with my purpose? How is this getting me to my purpose? Ask yourself, is this helpful to me? Is this thought that I'm having helpful to me? How is this going to help me? Well, I feel like I just need to kill myself. Okay, is this helpful to me? Is that going to help me to get to my purpose? No. Okay, now what do I need to do? Discern. In other words, distinguish that that's not a thought for you and you got to let it go. And you're not, and now you have to decide what you're going to do, which is not act on a thought that's not helpful to you. Well, I just feel like I want to kill him after what he did. Yeah, is that thought helpful to you? No. Okay. Then discern that's not helpful and act against it. Here's another good question to test the quality of your thoughts. If you memorize the first two, you're going to be good. How does this get me to my purpose? Is that helpful for me? Right. But you should also ask yourself, would that be abusive if I said it to my kid? Because we say a lot of things to ourselves that are actually abusive, but we don't realize they're abusive because we're so used to abusing ourselves that we don't know we're abusing ourselves. We also don't know that ourselves is a self. We don't know that we even are a person. So we kind of feel like, I guess I should be able to say whatever I want to say to me because no one can see what I say to me, but that's not true. What you say to yourself is a part of how you take care of yourself. So if you're saying, I'm so dumb, I'm so stupid, I'm so worthless, I'm such a slut, I'm so evil, I'm such a criminal. Would you say those things to your kid? If the answer is no, then it's not a high quality thought. So those are detrimental thoughts. You're abusing yourself. That's what you're doing. You're taking a whole human being and you're abusing them in your mind. You're just emulating the voice of your narcissistic mother or father. That's all you're doing. Oh, you're so dumb. You're never going to make it. You're not going to have anyone. You're going to be alone forever. Why would you talk to someone like that? Well, I wouldn't. I'm just talking to myself like that. Well, there's no wonder you feel bad. That's self-abuse. Oh, I get it. So I'm not supposed to abuse myself in my head and say all these mean things? No. Well, but it's true though. It's true. Well, every coin has two sides to it, right? So everything's got two sides. So if you're just looking at the one side of it and you're not looking at the positive side, you're not helping the self. That's abuse. Maybe my kid really isn't that smart. Maybe it's true that he's not very smart. Is telling him he's dumb and then saying, well, it's true, does that excuse my abuse? No. So despite the fact that there may be truth to it, I still have to watch the way I talk to my kid. I'm not going to tell him that he's dumb. I'm going to tell him, you're really popular. You are really popular. That's how I'm going to talk to my kid. Does that make sense? Because I'm not going to abuse him. So that's how you have to talk to yourself. Even if you think something negative about the self is true, you don't say it to the self because it's still self-abuse. So you don't say to yourself, I'm so fat. Why? Because you wouldn't say it to your kid. That's a rule. You have to treat yourself as you would treat someone else that you love. You could ask yourself this question, is it a bit extreme? Is this thought that I'm having a bit extreme? Is this method that I plan to take, this plan that I plan to enact, is it a bit extreme? Is this way that I'm trying to act and behave, is it a bit extreme? Chances are, if you find that it's extreme, then you need to balance it out. So you got to pull it more toward a balanced direction. Is it perfectly accurate? Sometimes we like to exaggerate in our head, right? I can't trust anyone. All men are trash. All women are gold diggers. Okay, hold on. Is it perfectly accurate? Is what you're saying accurate? If it's not accurate, it's a low quality thought. A very clear distinction between mental health and mental illness is thinking thoughts that are accurate. When our thoughts are not accurate, that's what pulls us into mental health. Inaccurate thoughts. When we think that we're ugly when we're actually beautiful, that's poor mental health. When we think that we're fat when we're actually thin, that's poor mental health. So ask yourself, is this actually a perfectly accurate thought that I'm thinking, that I'm entertaining? Critical thinking will allow you to see the argument against what you're thinking about. So ask yourself, what are the flaws or exceptions? In other words, you're going into your opponent's mind, so to speak, or the opponent of what you're thinking, and you're picking apart your own argument. You're picking apart your own thought. So for instance, you could say, you know what, I think I should be the class president. And then go into your opponent's mind and see what would be against you. What are the flaws of your thought? Oh, well, there's someone else in the class who's a little bit more qualified. Well, if you do that, then you're not going to be able to get away with things because there's going to be more eyes on you. Oh, it's going to cost you more time, more money. Okay. So now you have two sides. Now you got to weigh it out. And then finally, you got to discern what's going to be best for you. Well, how do I know which is best? Measure to get your purpose. Which one is getting you toward your purpose? I can't tell you whether you should be the president of your little association or class. Only you know, because you know what your purpose is. It depends on your purpose. Listing other possibilities. So let's say you walk in the house and then your wife is mean to you. Okay. So you could tell yourself, she's cheating on me. I walked in the house. She didn't even say I love you. She must be cheating. Okay. Quality control checklist. Let's list some other possibilities for why your wife might have been mean. She could be tired. She could be having a bad day. She could be hungry. There could be hormonal issues. Maybe you said something. Maybe it has nothing to do with you. Maybe there's other issues in life, at work, with the kids. List the other possibilities. Don't just be in one way of thinking. That's underthinking, not overthinking. It's underthinking. Ask yourself, what is the evidence for and what is the evidence against this? You can make two lists, kind of like a pros and cons list, but it's an evidence list. So what supports the idea that, okay, what are you struggling with? What supports the idea that I should move out of my narcissist's home? So make a list of the evidence for it. What supports the idea that I should stay in my narcissist's home? Make a list of the evidence that supports it. Now you have the two. Weigh them out and discern. How do I know what's going to be best for me? Don't make your decision out of fear. Make your decision according to your dreams, aiming toward a purpose. One tool we can use is stating one negative and one specific positive. For instance, if you lose your job, what some people do is they go down the spiral down the rabbit hole, right, of negativity. So they only state the negative, they don't state any positive. Oh, I lost my job. I don't know how I'm going to provide for my family. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know where I'm going to get money. I must not be a good person. I must not be employable. I must not be worthy. All right, just negative, 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 negative. Now I won't qualify for the. Whew. All right, let's balance it out. Just state one negative, one positive. Okay, I don't know how I'm going to replace my income. That's the negative thing. What's something positive? Oh, I can't think of anything positive about losing my job. Hold on, bro. There's always two sides to every coin. Give it some thought. Meditate. Oh, well, I guess I will have more time with my children, and I can work on my book. Excellent. Very good. You can copy this down in your notes. You can take a screenshot. It will also be available in the book that will be coming out pretty soon. I just realized that the book is actually 300 pages, not 100 and something as I originally thought. So I'm looking forward to being able to release that for you guys. And I appreciate all of your help and all of your support and everything. On Wednesday, we want everyone who's here right now to come, because we're going to be talking about how to integrate the self after we've dissociated, how to integrate the different parts of the self. So thank you so much for all of your help and all of your support. And hopefully this training today has helped to get you into thinking critically. I encourage you question everything, but also answer those questions. Discern. Talk to you soon.